Another question that I've received about the CHIRP files that I've sent out, the CSV files, is, hey, those are really neat, now what do I do with them? In the last video we talked a little bit about creating a base file and why you would want to do that when you have multiple radios. This time we're going to talk a little bit about the CSV files that I sent out and see what we can do with those. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load those by doing File, Open, and I'm going to change this from CHIRP to CSV. And you'll see that I've got the three that we sent out: the primary 217A, the weather 217A, and the MCOM. So let's start with the 217A. And you'll notice it opens up in a separate tab. Now, for the sake of argument, we're going to say that this is my base configuration. And I'm just going to add this in there. Again, I always add a frequency in there for 0, and I usually make it 146.52, just because it's kind of nice to have sometimes. And again, the idea here is that you'll see the list starts at 0. Well, all of your frequency lists are going to start at 1, the published ones that we give out. So I want mine to start at 1 as well. So this is an easy way to do that. And I also want all my frequencies to start the same. You'll see that I did these on that one as well. I'm going to left click on the first frequency, and I'm going to hold my shift key down and use my down arrow key to highlight all of the frequencies in the 217. Once I've done that, I'm going to right click in the blue, I'm going to copy, and now I'm going to left click on this frequency on my other tab, and I'm going to go down to paste. That's the whole reason why you create the CSV files, because now you can cut and paste in here. And what I can do is I can go into, when I copy this over into my radio, I'll have everything there. But okay, so I've got the primary 217 in. Let's go ahead and let's add the other two. And change that to CSV file. And let's do the weather 217 next. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing I did with the last file. Left click on the first frequency, holding my shift key down and my down arrow keys. I'm going to select all the frequencies in this one. I'm going to right click in the blue, go to copy, and I'm going to go back over here. And I always give myself a space here, just a blank. It's more as a visual reference for me when I look at the file, nothing more. You don't have to do that. You can do it however you want. And I'm going to go down to paste. Okay, and I've copied my 217 in there for the weather. Now, skip a space, going down here, go back up here. I'm going to close this one, and I'm going to open my MCOM. And just like before, highlight, shift key, holding down the shift key, I'm going to use my arrow key, right click, copy, and I'm going to paste that. Whoops. And that's why you don't want to do that. Let's go down. And I'm going to paste. When I did that, must have botched it. So let's go back here. Let's highlight this again. Try this one more time. And paste. Okay, so this is going to be my base file that I'm going to use for all my radios. So I'm going to go ahead and save it, and I'm going to call this Mark's base file. You can name it whatever you want, obviously. Now the other thing that I like to do is I use a piece of software on my Droid phone that is called RF Finder. And if you do a Google search on W2CYK, Charlie, Yankee, Kilo, worldwide repeater locator, you'll find the software. This is really neat software. It's not free. I think I paid $7.99 or $14.99, whatever it was. I don't remember now, but for me, it's well worth it. The advantage here is that I can create files. I can look up areas. For instance, my metro area. Find a list of all the repeaters here, and I can create individual lists. I can email them. I can see a map on my phone of where these repeaters are. And what I've done is I've created a list for 3 cities in the metro area here and saved those as TPE or Travel Plus files so that I can import those into CHIRP, and I'm going to do that right now. So because this is a TPE file, I need to import it, so I'm going to go to File, Import, and I'm going to go down here and choose Travel Plus. Note though, if you look here, you'll see E files for some of the, I've still got some of my VX5 files. I could import those. If you use VX5 Commander, VX6 or VX7 Commander, you can import those in. ICF files, Kenwood, HMK files. So you can import any of those, but I'm going to do the Travel Plus files. And you'll see here the file name that RF Finder exports is this right here. So Radio Finder, and then of course your DM or your grid square locators. And then I've just labeled them here since I don't know off the top of my head what the grid squares are. And you'll see that I've done one for Aurora, Colorado Springs, and Fort Collins. So the first one I'm going to do is Aurora. So I left click on that and I click Open. And it doesn't, it says X is not valid. So because this is a .tpe file, I could go in and I could edit that by hand in Notepad or something else and get rid of those X's and change the X to an off, which is probably what I should do. But for this example, I'm not going to. I'm going to click OK. And then this brings up a list and it shows me the call signs and lets me go through and pick which file or which repeaters I want to bring in. Note that it includes the weather repeaters too. I kind of like to keep those. But just scrolling down through here, I'm going to go ahead and leave all of these in here. So I'm going to click. Oh, and one other thing to note here too, you'll note that I have highlighted row 82. And if I go back up here to the top, you'll see that it starts off at 1. So I want to change that. I'll go down here to the +10. Keep clicking that, 81, and I'm going to add 1. Now it's going to import this, and this first repeater is going to be at location 82. Click OK. And let's scroll down and let's see what I've got here. A little further, there we go. Okay. And you can go down through and kind of take a look at these and see. And you'll note that the ones that it did not like, those 3, there will be holes in there. So you've got a couple of options. You can leave those in, or since I use the spaces as visual locators, I'll go ahead and delete those. So right click, delete and shift up, really neat option. Always starts off at the top, so I'm going to scroll back down again. Okay, and let's go down through the list and find the other 2. Here they are. So I'm going to highlight both of those, delete and shift up. Okay, and those are about row 149, something like that. Let's try that again. Delete and shift up. Okay, so why is that not working? So option number 2 is I can always go down here and highlight the remaining ones. And I need to move them 2 spaces up, so let's get them all highlighted, quite a few. There we go. So right click, move up, that'll take them up 1, move up 2. Okay, let's go back to 149, and you'll see there's no gap there now. Okay, so let's go down, let's look at the other gap I've got here. Okay, it looks like I need to move these up 3, so I'll scroll down here, highlighting all of these. Okay, right click, move up 1, 2. Okay. Now there are all sorts of shortcuts and other ways to do this. I'm showing you this. This is might take a little longer, but this is an easy way to do it. So I've just imported my TPE file for the Aurora area, so I'm going to go ahead and save all of this for right now. And we're going to call, again, markspace file. Click Save. Now, starting at 232, let's go ahead, well, actually, let's close this. Let's go ahead and import another file, since I had those other two in there. And this one, let's make this one the Fort Collins file. Okay, so I've got some X's in there, so that's fine. And again, I'm starting at row 232. So let's go 100, 200, plus, and 232. Let's click OK. And there's always going to be some overlap. That's fine. Because what I'll do is when I get these in the radios, I'll put them in their individual banks. Okay. There's my space. Now let's go down through and make sure I don't have any holes in here. Oops, there's one right there. Just have to move up. Did that work? A couple of others. Let's do that. Shift up. I didn't look at what row that was. Should have. Yeah, and because you've got the two spaces there, I'm going to have to do the same thing I did last time. So let's just move these up too. And again, clunky way of doing it, but hey, whatever works. And now to make this easier, let's move this up one. Let's move that up one. So after you do this enough, you'll find all sorts of ways that you can do it. Okay, and that takes me up to memory 310, so that's good. One problem I've noticed though when you do this, and this is annoying, don't know a way around it unless you go to some other third-party software, but you can see that my offsets are all right here. But when I get down to some of the other files, the files that I didn't create, but the files that I imported from RF Finder, then the offsets do not get imported. So let's go back up here to, was it 81 or 82? Yeah, see right here. So you'll see that it's 0600. So we want to change that to 5.0. And yeah, I know, I hear a lot of people groaning, and I get it. It's a pain in the rear end. I agree. But from my perspective, it's still easier to do this than it is to program them by hand. So I'm not going to go through and waste your time doing every one, but just know that you have to do that. Okay, so for the sake of making this video short, or as short as possible I should say, let's go down here. So I've got space here. Okay, I'm going to start at 312. This time let's import the Colorado Springs file. Triple plus, Colorado Springs, okay. And there's only one in there. And again, I'm starting at 312. Let's click OK. 1, 2, 300, 10, 11, 12. Okay. Click OK. And let's go down to 312. And let's see if I have any gaps in here. There's one right there. Let's get rid of that. Nice thing about doing this too is even if you don't have a programming cable, if you know somebody who does and they're using CHIRP, then you can work on the file and you can usually bribe somebody with a donut, cup of coffee, soda, whatever, and at the next meeting maybe they can go ahead and upload that for you. Okay, so I've added the Colorado Springs file. I'm going to save this. Okay, so the next step now is to pull in the configuration out of my existing radio, and I've got everything wired in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download from radio, And I'm on COM 10, and this is my ICOM, my 208 right there, and I'm going to click OK. Now what this is doing is it's grabbing the configuration out of my ICOM radio currently. And I would do this for all my VX8, my VX7, my FT817, whatever. Each one of these would be a tab. Again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that. Notice though, and I find this with all the radios, see how it limits it to 25 channels, and if I go down here, I'll see that that's all I've got. Well, that radio is capable of, I believe, 500. So I'm going to change the 25 to 500. I'm going to hit enter. Now as I scroll down, all the frequencies are there. So another little quirk, just be aware of it. Also note here that my radio starts at 1 and not 0. Okay. Now with all of my tabs open like this, if I want to keep all my radios consistent, which I generally do, I'll go back over to my base file. I'll go to the very top. And in this case, I'm going to start at 1 because that's what my file started as. And I'm going to go all the way down to the last frequency that I've copied in. I've highlighted them all. I'm going to copy. Actually, before I do that, you know what? Let's do this. Let's save this as IC208, and I'm going to give it a date stamp, and I'm going to say this is the before file. Okay, now I've got a backup file in case I completely screw everything up. And I'm going to do that once again. This time I'm going to save this as the after file. And again, you can name it whatever you want. Okay, I've saved the backup file. I've copied the contents of my base file. Now I'm going to left click on channel 1, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to paste. And I get a dialog box that says overwrite location. Well, I don't want to do that for all 373, so I'm just going to click all. And remember in our 217 we had some high frequency and obviously the 224 frequencies in there. So those are not compatible with this particular radio. No big deal. I'm going to click OK. So let's do that. And it's going to keep going through the list here. And unfortunately the list pops up off screen. So I'm just going to hit all those. Okay. It's done. If I scroll down here, I should get down to, I think it was like 373. And I would do this for all my radios. Yeah, more than that. That's probably, it overwrote the ones that I had in there, and ones I didn't are still there, so that's why I've got the extras. But what I can do now is I can go down to my banks, and I can go ahead and add these to whichever bank I want. Like the first one is going to be our 217. And that went down to, where did that go? Yeah, so you can see where I've got some of the others in there, but now I can go ahead and assign the banks. At this point I can save the file. I'm done making my changes, and now I can upload that back to my radio. So this video has taken 20 minutes, 20 I'm sure very boring minutes, but at the same time I've been able to program, you know, almost 400 frequencies into my ICOM, and now with another couple of minutes connecting cables and powering up radios, I can do this in as many other radios as I have. So a serious time saver. If you have any questions, let me know. planning@arapahoearies.org or kd5dkq@awrl.net. Thanks for watching.